If my
Hey, it's Enrico Pallazzo!
Utah, give me 2.
Pallazzo!
Utah, give me 2.
Well, welcome. It is the night we are talking about the greatest team in. Oh, wait, no, it's not the greatest night in baseball, but it is one of the best nights of the week that you guys get to experience out in the internets. This is the Pallazzo Prospects Power Hour. And I have on this direction on the screen, the Big Brain. I can't even speak. Sorry. The Big Brain next to me. I've got Ben Chase, Big Brain Ben. And then down here, I've got in Canada, in his grandmother's basement, Robbie Baseball.
In the dungeon.
In the dungeon. That's right.
Still looking to figure out how to get the hell out of here. But yeah, good evening, guys.
All right. How are you guys doing? Say hi to the people and talk about how your week's been.
Ben?
Well, there's been a whole lot of vacation time. So I'm ready for my kids not to be at home. They had Friday off. They had today off. Today is President's Day, which is Robbie's favorite holiday.
It is.
Yeah, I guess. And it's good for you guys because now you can recap the 47 that you've had and you're not going to have any more. So perfect.
What's the Canadian equivalent to President's Day? What do you guys do for that?
Oh, we're not that conceited.
So, okay. Now, do you know the history of why this is what it is?
No, but I'll just 1 second and then you can give us the lesson.
Okay.
In the small town that I'm in, or adjacent to Baden, Ontario, they put up a prime minister's pathway and started spending a ridiculous amount of money on statues that were on benches. So you could go sit beside, whomever. And they all started to get defaced when everybody realized that like all the Canadian prime ministers had done these horrific things to all the Indigenous in the past. And then they stopped doing it, stopped continuing to put out the prime ministers. And then they actually took all of them away because they continued to get, chipped away and all these things. And then my township, my tax dollars have been paying for them to be stored at some exorbitant expense. I don't know who's storing them, but it cost, I think it was like over $30,000 a year to store these things, which that's not what storage lockers cost. And that's where these things should be. So the prime minister's pathway is apparently now going to start to come back, which is great because then I won't have to spend my tax dollars storing them. Instead, we can spend tax dollars getting them fixed and then adding more prime ministers to it. So yay. Why do we have a President's Day, or why did you, or why do you? I guess every day is President's Day right now for you guys.
Yeah. So
that was seriously over like a lead balloon. Like that was like a train wreck.
I don't know why you guys aren't celebrating more.
Because we care about baseball.
Origin of President's
I like
Day
it, Sam.
is simply that the origin comes from the late 1800s when they were looking to honor Washington and Lincoln and a couple other presidents, and they found out that multiple of them have birthdays in February.
Oh, okay.
They just decided to have the holiday to honor, rather than having a holiday for various different individual presidents, to have one holiday to honor all presidents and do it it's like the third Monday of February every year.
When's Trump's birthday? Because I'm sure it'll be changing to that real soon.
No.
My birthday's in February. I won't tell you if we've celebrated or not, but I turned 51 this month.
Wow.
So in better news, see, I'm living every day. There's still reasonable doubt for you two to make it this far. So.
This is true. So speaking of living and not living, the news of the day today is that actor Robert Duvall died at 91 years old, which I got to say, for a Hollywood person, that's a pretty darn good long life.
Yeah.
But especially for someone who starred in like gangster movies and all sorts of crap that like those sorts of people never make it to 50, let alone 91. And yet he got to star in those types of movies. But for baseball fans, we might know him best as far as his movie work in The Natural, where he played Max Mercy, the ever-loving journalist who didn't remember seeing Roy Hobbs as a young ball player and then was astounded by him as he got older. So yeah, he had quite a few other roles as well.
Obviously,
but-
the biggest one being Gone in 60 Seconds. He was the mechanic, right? We all remember. You know,
I mean, that
understood
was
the
that
history
was
with
really
Reigns. Like,
Mhm.
my kid recently watched that. It's a PG-13 movie. He's only 9. I permitted it. And now he wants to watch more PG-13. So we've introduced Transformers. It's got to be car related. That's my part of the PG-13. But that's a Duvall
So
reference.
now he's got a
not
crush on Megan Fox, and you have to crush his spirit. And let
and
him
at the
know
very
that
end,
that's
they
not aged
actually
well.
kiss on top of Bumblebee, and he looked at me like, you know, it was a real like, they're kissing. So anyway,
Yeah,
They are.
They do that as you get older.
that's right.
He was I forget the character's name, but he was a consigliere in The Godfather, and that's still every time I think of Duvall, like those two Godfather movies were just chef's kiss. So R.I.P. Mr. Duvall, and you know, love and kindness to all your family and friends that are truly missing you. We're just fans that liked your work. So all the love to the Duvall family.
Moving on to actual like live baseball related stuff. The big news, we really don't need to identify any single move or anything, because basically the big move is there's a ton of injuries so far this spring.
Yes.
Big name guys, as you can tell by my status on here, we're all happy to have healthy handmates. That makes us better than about 90% of baseball right now for some reason. It's a little chicken bone in your hand, and if it breaks, you're effed as far as power for a while. And that makes me not a big fan of drafting guys like Lindor and Jackson Holiday and such this year, but it is what it is. Hey, look who's here.
Adarsh.
Oh,
Adarsh is here.
The players that get the hamate surgery tend to recover at full strength.
Yeah.
It tends to be a good injury of not that there's good injuries, but it tends to be a good one that, you know, it's not going to ruin them. It's not like shattering your elbow as a pitcher.
But it's a couple of years before you return to power. I mean, Shea Langoliers was drafted by the Braves and really never hit for the Braves. Was traded to the A's, and all of a sudden he's this really good defensive catcher who can hit for power. You're like, well, wait a minute. He couldn't hit anything for power, but his handmate got healthy, and all of a sudden balls flew a whole lot better.
Well, I'm waiting for the day where they proactively just have their hamate bones removed, since it's kind
Just
of
like the Tommy Johns, you know.
Yeah, no, great. Appendix for your hand, like you really don't need that bone for structure or strength. It just literally, like you said, it breaks and you lose your power for a while. Because I'd imagine it would hurt like hell to swing with that situation going on in your hand. I'm waiting for players at like 18, 19 you to be say, look, and I got here's my little surgery scar. I had my handmates removed. I'm good.
Do that and have your first Tommy John, and there you go. Then you can start throwing curveballs.
Yeah.
There you go.
Seriously.
So any of these injuries in particular, do you guys stick out beyond just the general handmate ones?
Not really, because the only thing that happens is one veteran who signed in the offseason moves to a different position. It's not going to necessarily create that prospect opportunity that would be really good. You know, with the Mets, just moves Bichette over. Nothing else that I saw that I was like, oh, that's good. You know, that's really going to create a battle.
Help you if you really like Brett Beatty, because he's probably going to get more
I guess that's the one.
Third, you know, but.
And that doesn't
but even then, he's not really a prospect that's going to get time.
Right.
It's
just youthful.
Yeah. And
one of my favorite 4A players.
Yeah. Well,
4A. Yeah. Hopefully we could make an excellent team of it. Miguel Vargas is always, or not always, he's now the guy that I look to and think, well, how can we avoid that situation?
Jared Kelenic.
But Kelenic had opportunity. That's the difference.
Yeah, most 4A players have an opportunity. They just They do
like Keston
Flip.
Hiura.
Speaking of a good
Excellent
4A guy,
Yeah, there you go. Keston Hiura, like that.
speaking of a good 4A guy,
Was this how we're going to start
Jordan
talking
Lawler
about
is likely
Baltimore?
Yeah, there we go. No, Jordan Lawler is likely going to get more run now with Corbin Carroll out because they're talking that there's going to be some moving of guys into the outfield that don't normally play there. That Lawler might even get some time in the outfield. That could be a very interesting situation to watch.
Like in Toronto with Santander, they're like, oh, well, he's out. Well, that's going to create more opportunity. Yeah, and no. And then they went.
Well, then they go trade for Jesus Sanchez.
Yeah, which like through the money, it looks like he's going to end up costing them $11 million, which I think based on insurance coverage for Santander, which gets into the weeds a bit for, the finances of baseball, but that's still going to leave them with a couple mil extra. Despite the fact that they took that 11 million on, but he's going to be platooned. They don't have an elite left-handed platoon bat in Toronto to create opportunity. And I don't know what the Arizona pairings would be for that, but that kind of squashed the whole deal in Toronto of like, oh, like now, somebody else is going to get more time and they're going to move Barger out to the outfield and do all. Yeah. I mean, like for the opening series, sure. But let's see how spring plays out and who, John Schneider for the Jays and whomever is managing the rest of the teams that have to sort that out, who they want. It might create the ability for these managers to get the 26th guy instead of being kind of voluntold who they should be taking. They might get the choice of, who can you use?
Yeah.
But anyway,
it might put some interest into spring stuff if the one that just kind of came down the pike today is the Pablo Lopez stuff. If his elbow is an issue, I struggle to see the Twins not being the first team to sell off this year, because there's no way without Pablo Lopez that team hangs in the Central. The Royals are a lot better. The Tigers are what they are. The Guardians just always are a solid team. I think you're going to end up having a race to the bottom with the Twins and the White Sox is what's going to happen. And the Twins are smart enough to know to sell off.
I think the White Sox are a 500 team this year. I'm not selling the White Sox. They have some interesting.
I think that might be their ceiling, but I don't think it's impossible. But I get it. No, I can see that too. It's just, and especially if the Twins decide in, let's say, June, they're going to jump the market and they're going to sell off a Ryan. They're going to sell off, Byron Buxton if he'll sign off to the deal. They're going to sign, trade away guys like Matt Wallner and Trevor Larnach, guys like that. It could be a lot of fun for us as prospect guys because we'll see Walker Jenkins and Emmanuel Rodriguez and all these guys come up, but it's not going to be fun to be a Twins fan for the summer because their butts are going to kind of get beaten in. But it happens. There's always a team like that. Yeah. I mean, of course, then again, maybe Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez come up and they set the world on fire and the Twins end up a 500 ball club with that.
Right. They could, but I think we saw that last year with the Twins. I think they pretty much let us know what their 26 game plan is going to be. And that is they're rebuilding for 27, 28. And especially with Pablo Lopez going down, I think that's any hope they had is
if he's now, I mean, he's getting imaging. We don't know for sure he's down, but at the same time, his contract is through 27. I doubt he's an easy sell as far as a trade because he only pitched half a year last year. So you're already dealing with a guy that's now missed. If he misses this year too, he's missed a year and a half of ball. There's nobody's going to take that on a trade, so he's kind of stuck. But guys like Ryan, they could potentially move. And I mean, maybe they really get into it and they throw out a really young rotation and move someone like Bailey Ober too.
Yeah, like the dream, if you're a fan of a team that is not going to be competitive, is that you'd like to see them play well when you attend or pay attention, and generally speaking, not get blown out. So if that means, and that's obviously impossible, it's going to happen. But if you can promote your rookies or your prospects, I should say, make them your rookies, and then your veterans aren't 35-year-old guys trying for that final contract. they could avoid a lot of trouble next year if they bring him in early. If they jump the gun and allow teams to get 20 starts from the potential arms they could give up, bullpen guy, whatever it is. Not like,
Well,
I mean, they really emptied it out a year ago. So what they did,
and that's why they have Liam Hendricks and Taylor Rogers as their potential closers, and those guys easily could be swapped out at a deadline.
Yeah, and like I was saying, you don't even need to do that, like wait that long. I mean, but for some of them, for sure, you want the health, and other teams aren't going to want the salary, blah blah, whatever it is. But if you are in a dream scenario, Minnesota is clearing out a lot of the outfield pieces. You know, a guy like Outman, he either hits or he's DFA'd, and then you don't replace them with the next guy off waivers. You bring up one of your prospects, and that would be excellent.
Yeah, I really hope they do that and don't pull a Colorado Rockies where they get rid of one old set of dishes in the cupboard and bring in a whole nother new set of old dishes from the cupboard.
The one good move Colorado made in that was Moniak last year. They turned him into a everyday player, but that was like not an old guy that they signed. That was a DFA that they claimed.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, you're right. They just churn him.
Speaking of Rockies, for a fun signee, and this isn't prospect related, but Germán Marquez is now going to be with the Padres.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I like that spot. Marquez is a guy who's always had the stuff, but was in Colorado, and so you never wanted to touch him in fantasy. And of course, they announced this deal just after I had cleared off Marquez as far as one of my drops for an off-season league. but at the same time, I mean, I think he's going to be a guy that is significantly more valuable this year, and he's going to be a guy who could surprise a lot of people because they're used to seeing his numbers in Colorado.
Yeah, no, I'm so in on him getting a new place to call home to pitch at, and he's still staying in the NL West. He's still going to know a lot of the teams and a lot of what's going on and pitching in those different ballparks. So I think there's going to be a familiarity there for him that's going to give him some comfort, but I wanted that to happen 3 years ago for Germán Marquez. Like he has some fun stuff. I'm real excited to see what he can do in San Diego.
Yeah.
So,
well, boys, are we ready?
Are you gentlemen ready
to go to Sam's favorite club?
Are we going to start with my favorite club?
Are we starting or ending? They can't be in the middle.
I was going to say they got to be the start of the finish. Do we want to get your favorite club out of the way?
Why don't we go to the Padres?
Let's reverse the Padres and the Mariners.
Reverse order? We can do that.
Padres, Orioles, Mariners. POM.
So we're going to start with the club that has zero Pallazzo interest. The other two clubs have some Pallazzo interest. I'm saying,
Chase, we love the Padres farm system. It's deep and vibrant.
I'm saying Mike V's a big O's fan. You're a big Mariners fan. We don't have anyone who's like, oh my gosh, I love the Padres.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, that's where I'm going with that. Sorry. I don't want to disparage AJ Preller, who has more job security than I do right now. So
didn't he just sign
for him?
Didn't he re-up with them?
Just got an extension. He's 48 years old, and this guy seems like I think he might be the second longest tenured GM in baseball right now behind Cashman.
Wow.
Which, that's impressive all by itself, but especially for a guy who seems like he's worked through 3 teardowns already. It just seems like, and man, how he has players to trade every year is beyond me, but that also speaks to his talent as an evaluator and surrounding himself with really good evaluators in the draft and in the Latin market. So I put down here that it's likely the worst system in baseball, but that there's probably going to be somebody that pops that we hear about in July, because that's going to be who filters a trade. And we're going to talk about at least one of those guys when we talk about the Orioles here later, that they traded away last year, who was kind of a pop sort of guy. That's just what this team does to get the pieces they need to compete. So, Robbie, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. I am pro Padres system here. All the way back to AJ Preller doing the like trio or quattro of Rule 5 picks once upon a time, when he was doing one of those multiple rebuilds where he's like, I'm going to make them cheap and I'm going to put them in my bullpen. And then I don't remember what happened with any of that, but just the idea of being different.
I think Luis Torrens is the only one who actually has
from that
catcher, but he was from that, and he's ended up having a pretty decent major league career out of it. He's a backup catcher and been a backup catcher, but yeah, they had a whole lot of nothing that came out of that, but it was still kind of fun.
Yeah, it was something different, which I think, caught my eye. And last year with them, I had given a Rule 5 pick on my big three because they were in a somewhat similar position of thinness. And I hate Ethan Salas. So Juan Nunez was one of my guys last year who was a Rule 5 pick. He was returned to Baltimore, who we'll be talking about tonight. I also had Boston Bateman, who's now with Baltimore. And then the other guy was Cash Mayfield. And this year I'm repeating Cash because that's what he is. He was a 24 first-round pick. Beauty of a debut season, just for the stats that you want, people. 60 2/3 innings pitched, which is not a lot, but you've got a teenager, so you got to be careful. 2.98 ERA turned in, 88 Ks, and only 28 walks. Also just very dominant, huge body pitcher. I thought he did a great job. I'm really excited, and apparently whoever does the conglomerate MLB.com prospect list agrees with me on this past year's first-round pick, Cruz Schoolcraft. Not just a pretty name, but a beast of a man or young man. He's my kind of project. The debut aside, the teenager should see full season ball this year and mimic Mayfield's probable, innings input, maybe do the piggyback idea. As we've heard, Savage did last year with Stanfield, with Toronto, blah, blah, blah. It's repeating the delivery. That's going to be the Schoolcraft school of design for this year is get this guy to repeat the delivery. If he gets hit around, that's okay. It's going to be, honing it in. And I'm not ready yet to make a Randy Johnson comp, as I very willingly did for Noah Schultz. But I really like Schoolcraft's potential, very much like Mayfield. And then the other guy, this is just a sign of the times in taking a 29-year-old Sungmun Song coming over from the KBO. This is a default. The fun part with him is that unlike when, who was it? Ha-Seong Kim that did it with him and got the 5-year, $25 million deal. His whole thing was like no options. Sungmun Song is coming in with no position. He is going to be the utility move around guy. When someone's hurt, he'll move around. He can play first base. He can do what they're going to need him to do. And he's 4 years, $16 million on an MLB contract. So he's getting overvalued in first year player drafts where he's eligible to be picked. He's a consensus top 20 pick. I recently took him in a draft 16th, more out of a position need than I did the thought of him being an excellent prospect. But this guy could be of some use immediately. And this is what the system needs. That's why they have to sign him. Yes, they are. They are the Baltimore Orioles, and we'll get to them shortly, Mike. And it is personal. Okay. It is personal. But anyway, so yeah, Mayfield, Schoolcraft, and someone.
I was going to say real quick, Cash, Mayfield, and Cruz Schoolcraft are 65, 70 grade names for baseball.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
Oh yeah,
I love them. Those are
the Schoolcraft jersey, even on Players Weekend, what could it be? Should his nickname be University?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for them just for their names. So,
I mean, I knew Schoolcraft was going to be there because Robbie here's 6'8" and lefty and goes,
who does?
Nice.
Who
nice.
does?
Okay, I'll listen to yours, Ben, while I eat this lovely macaroon that I do love. Randy Johnson. Well put. My son and I made these lovely things for my wife. They're pink. It's hard to tell because all of my film here is my thing is too white. But anyway, lovely thing my kid and I made for my wife.
So last year's big three that I had Leo DeVries, I had Ethan Salas, and I had Victor Lizarraga. Not going to be on the list anymore. But anyway, we're not going to worry about butchering his name because he's not anywhere on here. I did repeat Ethan Salas, and I know Robbie has his own concerns there. If you're talking about fantasy, this is not a guy you really care about and probably won't care about when he gets to the majors. But I have said this since he was originally signed, that he reminds me of a Yadi Molina path. I'm not saying he's going to ever get to that level of a catcher or a hitter, but the type of guy who is so good defensively that he makes it to the majors as a substandard hitter, but yet has the talent that he could potentially work his way into at least an average hitter. Because let's be honest, Molina was never a great hitter. And I know there's a lot of Cards fans that are going to just throw all sorts of shade on me on that, but
it just feels like blasphemy for you to just say that out loud so nonchalantly.
But if you look at his career, he went like 6 years before he even hit 260. I mean, he was a bad hitter for the first 5 years he was a regular. And then he did have 1 year, I believe, that he was a 300 hitter. But he was not great. Even, he finished his career with a 277 average. Great for him. Actually, he had a number of years where he was 300. I did not realize he had that many in a row. But
walk it back, baby. I like it. Walk it back. Let's see what you can do now, Ben.
But his fourth year in the majors, he hit 275. And still, regardless of how much you love him, he's a 96 OPS plus guy for his career. So
what about prospects? What about, you got anything on prospects? Yeah. You can leave the eating pro on Molina later because I'll bring it up. I promise several times.
Nah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my stance on that one. Anyway, so I do have Salas on there. Like I said, I think that's a potential path for him. That he's a guy that ends up a 90 to 95 OPS plus sort of hitter with really good defense. So basically not a guy you're really going to need to worry about other than 2 catcher leagues, which I know Robbie is in a lot of them. Cruz Schoolcraft, obviously a 6'8" lefty prep arm, which, holy cow, that makes Robbie happy. And especially when you find out the guy is just now 18, was 17 at the draft. And so therefore, hey, hello.
Whoa.
I thought isn't that your like Kid Rock fantasy right there? A 17-year-old that,
oh my
anyway.
Goodness. I don't want an exit conversation.
So talk to me about how you feel about them. We don't want to know how Robbie feels about him. We're going to leave that for Pallazzo After Dark. That episode will be coming out later.
Can't do it.
He is surprisingly athletic for a 6'8" guy who is kind of filled out. I mean, he's not a skinny 6'8".
Right.
He's but he can move fairly well. I think if the Padres are smart, he is going to start the year in the complex and he's going to finish the year in single A. But he's going to likely hit the complex just in time to have some really impressive outings just before the trade deadline. And if they really want to get a Scooble at the trade deadline or somebody goofy like that, he could be that kind of guy that could anchor a monster deal on an impending free agent. I don't think they have the juice to get a Scooble, but you know what I mean? Like an impending free agent.
That's a great idea though, Ben. As like for what you're saying is they work on his development and then they expose him with that in mind of like, we really like him, but if we want to land a real big right now fish, like the Dylan Cease, previous. Yeah, that's a great thought.
So Cash Mayfield's my third one on here. And what I put on here is the difference between he and Schoolcraft. Schoolcraft's a high-end ceiling guy. I think Mayfield is more of your high floor, like a 3-4 lefty, eventually like a mid-rotation type of lefty. But that fastball, it's got a lot of life, but it's low 90s. And so I don't know if we're looking at if he's going to be probably going to take, he's the type of guy who can move quickly, even though he was a high school pick in 24, just because he's a control mid-rotation type, not we're waiting to make sure that pitches number 3 and 4 come together. Those pitches are there already. It's just a matter of he needs to learn to sequence them. He needs to use them against better hitting. And it might be that they push him. Either one of these guys, I could absolutely see anchoring a deal for a big-time player. So that's the end of my big 3. Should we just slip straight into the next 3?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Last year's next 3 for me, I had Cash Mayfield, I had Humberto Cruz, and I had Sean Barnett. And obviously, I mentioned one of them already, and one of them will return on here. But the first one I want to mention is Jorge Quintana. He was acquired from the Brewers, and for Brandon Lockridge or something like a nothing.
I don't recall offhand, but yeah.
But this guy's a switch hitter. He's got a big offensive ceiling, and he can play defense out. He should potentially work at shortstop long term. But this is, again, a guy who's likely to start off the year in the complex and might see some A-ball this year. This isn't pushing him forward. This is not a guy you're going to likely see in Double-A anytime soon. Humberto Cruz, top IFA pitcher of 2024. Really like his pitch mix, but he had internal brace surgery to end last year, so we're not going to see him this year, most likely, unless it's the very end of the year. And then lastly, just because I like to tout the upper Midwest boys, especially the big bat carrying boys, Kale Fountain, long swing. When he hits the ball, it gets hit hard. But there's a lot of concern over how often he's going to be able to hit the ball once he gets up into the upper minors. Does have a pretty good arm. I don't know that he's a third baseman long-term, but he could move to the corner outfield and be pretty solid. But I just think with a system that doesn't really have those guys that are A-ball, he's going to likely be an A-ball, and he's got a big tool at least that you can see. And so he's going to have a chance to maybe sit 4th or 5th in that lineup each night for, in the California League. That's a pretty good living to make. And so that's my next 3.
All right. Robbie?
Yes, sir. So I have right-handed pitcher Miguel Mendez, who finished in Double-A last year. Great start to the year, got promoted, and then he was a dog for people who don't like dogs. So he wasn't what you wanted. He wasn't a dog like right on. I love him. So we'll have to see if he can do the struggle after promotion and then repeat early season performance the following year and dominate in Double-A. But that's why he's a next up, not an immediate, despite the age of 23. In most systems, that would be old for the Padres. As we discussed, they're almost in a reverse of the talent is at the top for them as their big guys. Jagger Haynes is the next guy I have up, a lefty, 23 as well, also Double-A. 103 innings pitched last year, 4.11 ERA, 101 Ks, 64 walks. And we're not yet respecting him in Dynasty, but I think there's a way for his stat line as well as his stature amongst us to change in 2026. And then finally, I've got a super toolsy outfielder guy that I don't typically go for in Ryan Weidman, who was the 3rd round pick in 2025. Yeah, that's correct. He may not have that dog in him. That is correct. For the YouTube comments, and if you're not already following us on the YouTubes, you should, at Pallazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's. But anyway, Weidman, all the tools, that's the report. All the tools, super speedy. He did debut. He did okay. I don't know what we would really expect after a guy gets drafted and assigned. He had 11 steals and under 100 at bats. There's enough power, I think, that he could, power meaning he should be able to get more than singles, but not necessarily a power hitter. I think he could be a really interesting one. If this hits, this could be the guy Ben was talking about earlier, where all of a sudden we know about him. If they give Weidman like a high A assignment or like low A and then a quick promotion, if he's doing well, Weidman could be somebody that all of a sudden the Padres are touting as, up and coming quickly. So anyway, Mendez and Hayes on the mound and Weidman in the outfield.
Yeah, and I think that's important to know with these systems that have not a lot of talent at the top, but are really deep at the bottom. Their body that probably after the top 10 prospects in the San Diego Padres, they all become super lottery tickets, but they get opportunities.
Oh, it might be sooner than that, but
I'd say like after 4 or 5, you're looking at guys that would legitimately surprise you, not like logistically like they're below. It's like, no, we don't really know a lot about them, or they were drafted or signed or traded for with like this one thing they did, and all of a sudden it clicked for them. So I think Padres will have those pop guys this year.
Yeah, well, they're going to have opportunity is all I was trying to say. Is
100%.
Yep. It's not deep. So like somebody's got to step up, somebody's got to hit. And it's just, we talk about it all the time. It's just as much opportunity to play as it is the talent that you bring to the diamond. And San Diego's got a lot of kids that are going to get tried out. So
for sure.
Fun system to at least be aware of.
Yes. So wedge guys, who are your wedge guys, Robbie?
Well, first I got to record the time so that Gauthier doesn't hit me. Not that happens, anybody out there. Okay. He's very gentle. But my Padres wedge guys are Bradley Rodriguez, who is a potential closery-ish type in a system that doesn't need it, but that's what you do is you just have those guys. He should become a back end of the pen guy this year. 3.19 ERA, 38 Ks and 26 and 2/3 innings pitched. Isn't sparkling. The K rate's great, but his stuff is really good. And Mason Miller and him talking in the bullpen might be good, and other veteran arms around him might really help to like boost up a 22-year-old, and we could see something neat. And the other one is Tirso Ornelas, who, I mean, he's been a prospect since I think he signed in it was 2005 J15 class.
Wasn't the Bush administration?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Let's go more president talk.
He's only 25. He was born during the second Bush's administration.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So he's either ready for his shot at a bench role at this point, or it's not going to happen. His line at AAA is fine, and he just hasn't got to play much in parts of 3 seasons. So I feel like he's a final shot kind of guy, but he seems to have he is a prospect still. He seems to, I don't know, reasonably speaking, he's a wedge guy. That's definition of a wedge guy. I just don't know where else to put him.
Yep.
I like it,
Ben.
I have a couple of names to know, and I'll mention a draftee here. The first one is a pitcher that was in the AFL, and that's Tucker Musgrove. Actually, no relation to Joe Musgrove, but just happens to be in the same organization. Two-way player in college, but it was like NAIA type of a college, so lower level college. But then had TJ right after he got signed by the Padres, and finally debuted this year. And he looked really good in the AFL as far as the stuff is concerned. He can touch 100. He's got a breaking pitch or two that look really interesting, but it's all inconsistent. I watched him. I think he threw. There was a fastball that I saw get registered at 94, and then he threw like the next hitter. He threw a fastball at 100, and I'm going, well, wait a minute here. Like but then you'd see a breaking pitch that just, holy cow, that makes your knees buckle, and the next one looked like it didn't move at all. So there's some work here consistency wise, and there's a lot of relief risk. But the type of guy who could move quickly as a reliever and be that like secondary or tertiary piece in a trade that they're putting together, because he's close to the majors. If he comes out and is able to do that out of the bullpen, they might decide to keep him in the rotation, which likely would mean more A-ball work, but we'll see. The other Wedge guy, there's my undrafted free agent, Bradian Carpathios. He was an undrafted free agent. He's been around in the minors for a little while. He broke out in 25. Good defender, hardworking type of guy. Everyone, you heard lots of really good things about him, but just never had done anything. But he was also about 2-3 years older than his competition last year. So we'll see how real last year was in the upper minors this year, but just an interesting type of guy that could maybe work his way into like a fourth outfielder career after breaking out last year. And then the final one, my draftee from last year, is their 4th round pick, Michael Selena, who big freaking fastball, kind of easy 98 and touches 102 when he really cranks it back. The 102 is a little goofy with his control on it, but when he's throwing 98 to 100, he can kind of hit the head on a dime, which is really fun to watch. But the problem is he has nothing else with it that is really not great. So the slider is inconsistent, but when it's good, when it's on, it's really nice. Hasn't shown anything as a third option. So this is a guy who's going to be a project, but, as we're talking, who could possibly pop, a guy who can easily touch triple digits and can really locate a fastball. That's a guy that could really pop pretty quick, especially in the lower minors when guys can't control their fastballs. So he could put up some really good numbers to start the year and make himself look pretty darn good for a trade.
Okay. Well, that was 35 minutes on a team that you guys thought we might talk about.
It wasn't. We didn't start till 18 minutes in, so it was 14 minutes. But
that's 30. That's 31.
But still
30. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
carry the 7. And just to put a bow on it, Ethan Salas, Dynasty guys, it's exit mode. Just, Ben said so much, or said it as much, and I didn't talk about him at all, but like, move on. I know everybody paid a pretty price to acquire him, however you did it in your leagues. It's at least find another guy in your system that you can bank on, which conveniently there's a guy I could be able to talk about when we get to one of these teams, and it's not the Orioles, who I believe we're moving to next. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Borrington Orioles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Baltimore Orioles and Mike Virginia's favorite team. Go Mikey V. They've had a pretty interesting couple year run, some ups and some downs. And this year they seem to have some real excitement and some helium for some of the big league things that they've done. But talk to us about that farm system, Robbie. Why don't you give us the big 3 for the Borrington Orioles?
100%. Last year it was Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basillo, and Eric Bradfield Jr. Mayo was ready to rock. They just needed a spot for him. Basillo, like, where was he going to play? And then Bradfield Jr., let's see what you got. So this year, repeating 2 of them, Basillo and Bradfield Jr. Bradfield Jr., for those who not in the know, 23 first-round pick. I don't know how he could crack the starting lineup. I could see him as a 4th outfielder at some point later in the year if they move bodies, because they brought like guys in and around to be exactly what he could be, which is put him in the 6th or 7th on first after the guy who's not as fast as him, force him to be a big game base stealer for you and come in defensively and see what he can do. But I don't see where that fits with Baltimore. Basillo, all the things might need to sort out a timeshare at catcher DH or risk like Kobe Mayo's year last year. And I don't want that to happen to another prospect. but that's what I'm feeling here is we need that opportunity. And then Dylan Beavers is the other guy, and he's a right fielder outside of the two that they already have. So I don't quite know what they're going to do. And it's really frustrating because what's the Jackson that they got last year who came off the scrap heap? Jeremiah Jackson, and then had a great stretch run with them last year. And he's in the way. You got O'Neill in the way. They brought in War. Oh, there we go. We got it down here. Joe's chiming it. Like, yeah, they Tavares as well. Like, they just have unfortunate blocks for a lot of these.
Leody Tavares is not blocking anybody,
but they find a way, like water in a crack. It finds a way.
Life finds a way for sure.
And it's just, it terrifies me that this system is like, we were, excited last year about how many different prospects they could plug into places, and they didn't. And they also didn't make huge trades to, do the San Diego thing of clearing them out to like reset, refresh. But we liked the draft class 2 years ago when we talked about the draft class. That's the 24 draft class. Then Ben, when you and I talked about the 25 draft class, we liked some of the things that they had done, but they haven't moved bodies around enough for me to be like perfect, because you see player A slots here and B here and C. No, they've brought in guys from outside the organization. And what I didn't mention was the thing they need the most, which is some pitching. They don't have that guy. And the last guy that they had, they traded to the Angels for Taylor Ward. So anyway, Basillo, Beavers, Bradfield Jr., boring. Okay.
just so you know, it is
wow.
Right? Like it's Basai. Oh,
No.
Not Basillo.
No, not until he gets enough playing time will I pronounce it correctly.
No, Samuel Basayo is dreamy. He is going to play this year, and the hope for our fantasy game is that they give him 20 to 30 games behind the plate to
just like the Cubs.
But you talk about Baltimore, and this is the exact opposite problem that you have from San Diego, where you have such a vibrant farm system and positions to play in the majors. But this is a team that has expectations all of a sudden. Like I said, the last couple of years have been real interesting for them. That it's really difficult, I think, for a front office to know that place between I'm bringing in a free agent, I'm bringing in an actual major leaguer, somebody that's going to be a difference maker for the roster, versus I'm bringing in Leody Tavares. Like that tells me that the front office is afraid. They're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And when you have that much talent and you have new ownership that's spending money, theoretically, like, play some of the kids, make a pathway.
Also, the talk of Kobe Mayo having a spot to play, and they're like, well, actually, he's going to take some outfield reps, and maybe he'll take some third base reps to, like, what are we doing? Like,
we evidently want to screw that kid up mentally because
Miguel Vargas, if he doesn't fit in your organization, you don't have to keep him if you have a need elsewhere, which if you're Baltimore, you do, or you did this offseason, and he didn't get put in any of the deals.
Look at what they did with Connor Norby. Look at what they did with Kyle Sowers. I mean, finally, once they traded him away, look at how they flourished in Miami. I mean, they're not holy shit elite guys, but Sowers was an all-star last year.
Right.
And Norby held down a job, and that's just, but they weren't allowed to do that in Baltimore, which is what's annoying.
Right. And that's crazy to me because, to your point, Robbie, like, I need pitching and I've got all these prospects and I really need pitching, and it's not a free agency market. It's in the middle of the season. Like, move your players for controllable assets.
Yep. That's the big thing, Sam, is the controllable assets, not the expiring contracts. Like, this is the Minnesota thing we were discussing before. Maybe this is when you go and knock on the Twins' door and say, let us know when you want to, mail it in. Cause like, we don't foresee
on that roster.
Well, throwing Chris Bass at $18 million is crazy to me. And then, Bradish,
in
Rogers,
general, not crazy, but crazy for the Orioles.
Well, and this late in the offseason too.
I mean,
like
Bassett,
Toronto could have also made that call as soon as they knew about Bieber. They could have been like, hey, but it was a day too late, right? Like, he'd already signed with Baltimore. But anyway, Jeremiah Jackson, Tavares, O'Neill, all blocking. Mountcastle's still kicking around. Like, there's there's nowhere for Mayo.
And Castle, absolutely. That guy
Blaze
still.
Alexander came out of nowhere for them as well last year. Like, hey, okay.
I will say one of the things the Orioles did do well this offseason is they finally did unload for a pitcher who is controllable. They traded about half of their 2025 draft for Shane Baz.
Yep.
And honestly, I like that move for both directions. I like the move for the Rays. I think the Rays got a lot of players that fit the Rays, and Baz has a top end that they just don't have in Baltimore. He's just got to be healthy. Right. And if he can be that, he can be their frontline guy. But that one made perfect sense, and they finally uncorked for a guy. Now, Trevor Rogers turned into what you wanted him to be last year. That's finally, but I mean, you gave up some big pieces in order to get that guy, and he was crap for you when you needed him as a playoff.
When you were competitive 2 years ago, he was not there for you.
So last year, my big three, I had Mayo, I had Basayo, and I had Vance Honeycutt because I really thought his defense was dreamy, and we'll just not talk about how that went.
Wow.
So Basayo,
good name, by the way. That's
man.
Did you say
Basayo? Yeah. Oh, don't diss on Brent Honeywell. Robbie might go ballistic on you.
I'm still upset he didn't sign last year. I don't get it. World Series champion.
Basayo, this is going to sound like a holy shit comparison because it is a
holy shit,
a fringe Hall of Fame type of guy, or actually I think he probably should be in the Hall of Fame, but Basayo right now reminds me a ton of Carlos Delgado coming up.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Molina again. Damn.
No, but and it's not just the catcher hitter.
That's a ton of power you're giving to him.
But
holy smokes.
Yeah. Well, but when he is on his game, he unleashes it. And Delgado, when he was coming up as a prospect, did not unleash. I mean, was very similar in that it didn't show up a ton until he walked into the major leagues, and it took him a couple years. Yeah, I saw that from Joe. Thanks, Joe. Make me feel even better about my life. But Basayo, I really like the idea of him working the way that, I mean, okay, here's Braves reference. But the way that the Braves are intending to utilize Jonah Heim to be kind of their backup catcher guy and allow Sean Murphy, once he's healthy, and Drake Baldwin to play catcher and DH. Now, will they actually put Adley Rutschman at DH and give him some time off? I don't know. No. They need to. Obviously, this last year showed if he's playing every freaking day, it wears him down and he doesn't perform. Give him some days where he doesn't have to crouch. Give him, all that. But we'll see if Baltimore's smart enough to do that.
They need just days off. I think that Adley Rutschman, he's not built like Cal Raleigh, not to bring in my team about it, but like very few catchers are designed to have 600 at bats. And Adley Rutschman is probably a 450 to 500 at bat player a year. And if you keep him there, I'm feeling he's going to do a little bit better than what we're getting at a 600.
Because of his build, he's a bigger guy behind the plate. Joe Mauer was a big guy behind the plate, and the Twins would DH him.
Not Wieters.
Wieters was another big guy, but that's a whole other deal.
Baltimore fans love hearing about that.
Yeah. Well, just, there's entire websites devoted to Matt Wieters. So,
but they're doing it again is what I'm saying, Ben.
Yes,
they're not. And what you talked about too, Sam, like you got to be reasonable now. And especially when you've got another like legitimate catcher that you've brought in your system. So credit to Baltimore for developing.
One of the things, Basayo is not a zero at catcher. He is not he's never going to win a Gold Glove. Well, I mean, he could someday if he makes the progress that he's made in the last 2-3 years.
But he's serviceable behind the plate.
But he's workable behind the plate now. And 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that.
And depending on what they do in the rotation, Ben, he could be a personal catcher for one guy, and he could work with two of the others and catch them the odd time, and that
would be a
could be a
perfect setup. Yeah. So I have Dylan Beavers on here. Good strong debut. He's hella quick. Definitely not a center fielder defensively because his instincts are shit. But neither is Colton Cowser, and one of the two of them has to play center because they've got all of the slow right fielders. So one of those two guys has to play center field, which, by the way, is why Leody Taveras is on this roster, is because they have all of the slow outfielders, and they need someone who could potentially play some defense in center field, which is stupid for a roster, but we'll get into that more because
I love Leody Taveras. As an aside, even before he was a Mariner last year,
bench player, love him.
I wanted him to catch on as an everyday center fielder. Now, just hit enough, that you couldn't take him out of the lineup. And I'm going to say, I really hope that that's what happens to him this year in Baltimore. I really hope that this is the year that he finds some kind of consistency.
Beavers had a big swing adjustment last year, and that unlocked some contact that he didn't really have before. Whether that will sustain or whether the book is out on him in that new swing and all of a sudden he gets attacked and can't handle it this year, we'll see. Nate George is my third one, and this is a 16th round pick, who is now a top 100 guy on multiple lists. I'm putting together, I haven't sat down and put it together yet, but Fangraphs just released their list. That's the last of the 6 major ones that I track every year. So I'll have that spreadsheet put together, and we'll talk about that during the news and notes next week about anything interesting out of that. But George is on a couple of top 100 lists as a legit prospect. Broke out, came across 3 levels last year. Very, very, very fast. I mean, this is elite center field defense. Really fast, reckless as hell on the bases. I think it was like a 65% success rate stealing bases. Yet you're not going to be allowed to just run at will in the upper minors, or definitely not in the majors with that. But he's also reached AA way before they thought he would. So this is a guy who could spend a year in AA and a year in AAA and still be fairly young making his debut. But that's a legit center fielder there. And Robbie already mentioned Bradfield. They have legit center fielders in their system. You just got to find them a spot. So, do we want to move to the next? Go right into the next? Or do you have any comments on George?
Well, I was just going to say real quick before you talk about George, I love the fact that all 3 of us are in on Beavers. The Canadians getting Beavers. We like Beavers up here. Like, go Dylan Beavers.
Is going to leave you alone.
I'll try to keep it PG-13.
Going to leave you alone on that one.
Totally Beavers, where that's totally PG-13.
Well, he did change his swing. It was more of a chop before.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
On that note.
Is this thing on?
Yeah. I'm leaving that alone. I'm trying not to get us canceled here, folks.
All right. Wow. Beaver chop. That's not. So anyway, the next 3 that I have here, Ben, and then we can end, or not end, I guess we got the Wedge guys. But mine, I wanted to say it because I've got George. And then, he had the electric debut. It's just that, I don't know. He might be getting the pump up, as you said, about various different impactful ranking systems because of his speed versus his smarts, which is what I had on him. That sometimes you can just be better than your competition. Doesn't necessarily mean you are good yourself. You're just, whatever. So let's see how he does in the spring before we get angry at his choices and all the things that he does, because he could end up being their future center fielder if Bradfield isn't, because Bradfield does the, Kobe Mayo churn and burn, and we'll see how it all ends for Mayo. We'll see what they do with Bradfield Jr. We both agree that the current center field options are not the right ones, but because Baltimore isn't sure what they are, Nate George might be the one who ends up in the role in who knows 18 months or so. I've got last year's first round pick. Aloha. Nailed
It's actually
it.
these.
That's what I said. 21-year-old shortstop.
These
He can flat out hit 332 college average, 288 in a brief pro debut. He's got power, OBP, and time to become a real pro, because it's already a logjam and we've just beaten that over the head. So I'm not going to bother. And then the other guy in the next three is Boston Bateman, who we did touch on earlier, was with San Diego. Came over last year at the deadline. Great pro debut and post trade deadline, which was just 2 starts. He finished strong. He's 6'8", 240. He's a beast. He's going to be playing all year at 20. As we discussed with the Padres, this is just one of those guys that they draft and deal. We talked about this with the Guardians a little bit too, how they seem to draft guys that they're willing to move. But Bateman looks like, he's in a good position to move on. So it's Aloy George Bateman.
And is Bateman a lefty?
He is,
Bateman
obviously.
is a 6'8" lefty. His dad was an offensive lineman in the NFL. So just,
That's boom, right back to love me or Randy Johnson. Now I'm not comping him yet. Not yet. That's what next year's for.
Yeah.
You just like tall lefties. I'm just, you have a type.
Yeah, it's called cross training, guys.
So, last year I had CJ Layton, Steven Martinez, and Patrick Riley, and we're not going to talk anything about those. I really f***ed up the Orioles system last year, but all right. So on to this year's next three. This is where the pitching comes into play. Trey Gibson was an undrafted free agent and 6-pitch mix. And he is a guy who has actually appeared on, I think, one top 100 list already as I'm figuring all these out. What probably a mid-rotation guy in the end. I don't see the ceiling of anything better than that, but it's 6 pitches. He knows how to sequence with his fastballs and his changeup very well right now. It's just a matter of getting the breaking pitches, like his fastballs, his cutter, his changeup. He can sequence those really well. It's a matter of when's the right time to throw the slider, when's the right time to throw the curve. That's what he's going to work on in the upper minors to open the year. I really think this is the first call the Orioles make.
Really?
If they need to dip down into the minors, I like Gibson a lot, I think, but it wouldn't surprise me if he just takes the whole year in AA, AAA, and they get rid of somebody at the end of the year, or have somebody, they have Bassett on a 1-year contract and he basically moves into the Bassett role next year, however that works. Luis De Leon, for those who got to see him in the AFL, came back very well. Signed he was a low dollar guy. He was an old Latin signee. He was 18 when he signed, and Lord knows we only like to sign those kids at 13. And he has developed into a guy with elite stuff from the left side. He's not 6'8", so Robbie doesn't
6'3",
like
though.
that.
Change up.
He's not short. He's just not, But I will say, in the time I was out at the Arizona Fall League, De Leon was the best pitcher I saw. And I will say that over Hagen Smith, over all sorts of guys who probably have bigger name value to them. His stuff was the best that I saw out there. And it's a guy who can throw in the upper 90s. He's going to get you to ground out more than half the time. And he's got 4 pitches. It's just a matter of he's got to be healthy. And I think if he's healthy, he moves up a couple of levels next year, and he's knocking on the door of the majors for 27. Third guy is Enrique Bradfield. He's kind of he's hit a plateau of what he is. Really good defense, really good speed, has 0 power, and he needs to understand that. And if he would lean into that and bunt for singles and slap the ball into the gap and make a single into a double or a double into a triple more often, he could be a really valuable player. but he tried to mess around with his launch angle last year, and it screwed up his swing for a little while. He got it back working as a singles guy towards the end of the year. But man, if he would just be a slap and dash type of player, he could really be effective as that.
He literally Willie Mays hazed it. You know, he thought he could be a power hitter and hit harder.
It really did.
Screwed himself right up when he is the ideal, like you just said, he's the ideal single becomes a double guy. Like that could be the reason why Baltimore's hands are forced to promote him, even if it's just to a bench role. But like you said, if he's not able to do that, they don't need to, because they don't see a stat line that's like, we really should get him up, you know.
I mean,
frustrating.
Imagine Bradfield as a Terrence Gore, rest in peace, type of guy.
Yeah.
Because he could actually play defense. Did you know Terrence Gore played like 100 major league games and he had less at bat or plate appearances than he had major league games because he was consistently be brought in as a pinch runner. Had 43 major league steals in like 115 games.
Yeah, he was still rookie, like fantasy rookie eligible, like 4 years after his World Series time. Yeah.
And that's the thing. He actually ended up with as many plate appearance or as many games in the playoffs as he had in any single season in the major leagues, which is just crazy to think about. But Bradfield could absolutely be that kind of guy, but with the defense.
Right.
That's back in the day when we had larger player rosters and less pitchers. You always had a fifth outfielder type of guy who was exactly this. This is exactly the guy that Bradfield
Dwayne
is.
Wise comes to mind as one of those types of guys too. Yeah.
So those are the three I have. I'll kick into my wedge guy here, or my name to know, because it's another pitcher, and that's Braxton Bragg. Had a really was a senior sign draftee, and he showed up after going to I'm blanking on which spot he went to, like a Drive Line or a Velocity Plus or one of those places, and showed up a hell of a lot better than what they expected. And unfortunately, he had Tommy John to end the year, and so you won't see him until 27. But really established himself, got up to, I believe, did he pitch at Double-A? Regardless, he showed that he could be a quick mover, and then he had Tommy John. So we'll see what he is when he comes back. But the thing that really impressed me with him last year is his control. And a guy like that, even if his stuff isn't quite as top end as it was before, if he can come back with that kind of control, there's a back end starter role for him. My draftee is another pitcher, but this is one that Robbie might like. Second round pitcher, Joseph Oziarwa.
Yeah, good luck.
6'7" from Michigan State. He's the type of guy that if the Orioles want to move him quick, he could move very quick as a back end guy. But he has some body to fill out, and if they take some time with him, he could be the guy. He could end up being more of a mid-rotation, low end number 2 type of lefty if he has some time to develop. But I think he's got the pitches right now. If they want a back end, swingman type of lefty, he could probably move pretty quick in that type of a role.
Yeah, I'm with you there. My wedge guys, I had Luis de Leon as well, who was in my next 3 in 2025, as well as Juan Rojas and Josua Lorenzo, who we don't need to discuss those guys. But de Leon, I've liked his stuff for a few years. I thought that he was a quiet sleeper within that system that has always needed pitching. So I've always kind of looked at him. And I love your comments on him, Ben. I hope that comes true. My other wedge guy here is Ike Irish. The reason that he's as a wedge, he was also a 25 first round pick. He was the one who initially, when we were talking draft rumors back in the summer, was linked to Toronto as like they might want a college thing. And anyway, they went with Jojo Parker. instead. And then Irish ended up falling to the Orioles. But he's two things the Orioles don't need. He's a catcher or he's an outfielder. So that's how you end up in the wedge position. And I needed a way to talk about him because he's got a good low K rate. He's got all the average you want. It's just a matter of what are they going to do with him as he goes up higher. Not initially, because we know you can play him everywhere at the lower levels and stuff, but end of day, what's their position that they want to try to put him in, and what are we going to see? And really, like, I think he would be an ideal next or this summer trade candidate because he's new to your system. So you haven't kind of cleared that pathway for him in any way, shape, or form. Not that they're doing it for anybody else, but if you want to pick up whatever it is, he might be the right piece to do it because he's got the pedigree from college, as well as like you've already paid his signing bonus. So he's going to make minimal bucks in somebody else's system as we see here. So that'll end the Orioles. I feel like the Goves is going to want an ad break in here for monetization.
I have one if we would like to. It's a little longer.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Off in the distance, the game's dragging on. There's strikes on the batter, some runners are on. Then suddenly everyone's looking at me. My mind has been wondering, what could it be? They point to the sky and I look up above, and a baseball falls into my glove. I play right field. It's important you know. You gotta know how to catch. You gotta know how to throw. That's why I play in right field, way out where the dandelions grow.
As a proud sponsor of Little League Baseball, Pizza Hut welcomes all the kids who make it great.
Making it great.
I think
what a
that's
twist to Pizza Hut.
Yeah. Did either of you, Robbie, you probably didn't.
Yeah, Goldberg.
Ben,
Goldberg,
did you ever go to Pizza Hut to go eat pizza at the restaurant? Was that a thing that you guys did in the Dakotas? Because I miss the old school Pizza Hut. I think it was 30 years ago the last time I went to a Pizza Hut, and literally they still had Pac-Man where you got to sit and there was a video game that you looked at.
Ours burned down. Otherwise, it was still a very busy place. Like they had.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
Until the fire, it was great.
That's hilarious.
It's a sad deal, but it was.
Hey guys, I worked at a Pizza Hut in 2007.
Nice.
When I moved back from Calgary here, and I was looking to transition into some sort of restaurant management role, I took one for a company here called Prism that owned KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. That's what they had. And I heard through the grapevine that they had this massive $1 trillion loan due within the next 18 months. I'm like, oh, this place is probably not gonna last long, because they used to combine the KFCs and Taco Bells, or the two of the three would get combined, right? That's because the company was selling off the real estate from one of the locations they owned and rebuilding on a different one, just so you all know. But anyway, I worked for Pizza Hut, and they had the lunch buffet and the dessert pizzas, and it was all well and good. Almost as good as the Seattle system that we're going to translate talking about.
Seattle system, the probably one of the top 5 systems in all of baseball, and they've graduated a lot of names in the last 4 or 5 years, and they're still deep and long and making it happen all the time. So I have a bunch of players that I really love from the minors, but I'm super curious to get your twos. Big 3 next threes. Robbie, hit me with your big 3.
Yeah, so big fan of what Jerry's done. I loved how active he was earlier on in his tenure in the offseason, and just making trades, very much Ben with Atlanta and Anthopoulos, making deals that are fun deals because there's upside and there's whatever. And it's slowed. And it's slowed because they're really good, and they make the deals when they need to make the deals. They're not making the deals to see if, Eugenio Suarez can not lead the league in strikeouts like he did as a full-time Mariner, but bring him back because maybe he'll hit well down the stretch, and the deal with Naylor bringing him in and then re-signing him because you just haven't been able to get a legit first baseman to lock it down. And, now you have, and you didn't have one in the minors. And who was the rookie that they signed the extension to that was really good?
Evan White.
Thank you. Evan White was, was Jerry's attempt, like with Julio, at locking in a guy before the market could drastically affect you. And if it works 50% of the time, if it works 50% of the time,
Gold Glove winner in 2020.
And then injury and the fall, like it's crazy what happened to him, right? Like I think he ended up in, like, of all the washout places, Atlanta. No, I think it was actually the Angels. I think is where he last was.
I was saying he went from Atlanta to the Angels. So that really,
it was something like that. Yeah. But anyway, just all that to say, like, I love the moves. I can see it starting to slow a bit now, simply because they're at a point where they're really good and they're going to be their own feeder more so than I think they're going to need to be trading, for a second baseman and this and that. And they still make the in-season deals, but these guys, I think, are going to get a more legitimate chance to be on the team than 3 years ago when a lot of the prospects were likely to be moved out and may have.
Yep.
But in 2025, my big three were Cole Young, Lazaro Montes, and Colt Emerson. So this year, Montes and Emerson are sticking around. Emerson, the 23 first-round pick, finished in AAA, likely to start there again this year, double-digit home run, stolen base. It's really good. He does the baseball really good. I don't need to go on too much more on that one. He'll be 20 this year. I think 20, turning 21. I can't remember. I only have 20 written down. So let's just go with he'll play this year at 20. And then Montes, 21. He was a 22 J15 or international signing, power bat who will need to hold his OBP, or I fear he becomes another power hitting prospect who could be elite with all the things, but ends up just popping out a lot. And that's what I don't want to happen with him. I want to see the hard contact, getting results as far as like seeing some good average as he continues to rise up. And then Kate Anderson is my new name to the list. It would be foolish of me not to put him on. What a gift for a couple of the teams to have that lotto fall the way it did for them, or to have been bad the year before, like Seattle and Toronto, bad enough, I should say, that you end up with other teams who can't get high draft picks because they've sucked for so long. And then you end up in a position where, the Angels are drafting in front of you. So, of course, you get a more legitimate guy because they're still doing the player of need. So what a gift to be third. And the Angels are in front, right? Anderson could easily be seen as a Yasavage quick riser type. But Seattle has better depth than Toronto did in 25. So it's likely his best case scenario this year is he ends up finishing with maybe a start or two in AAA if he is just like crazy good. But they don't need to do that. But they could do that, and he's good enough that you could see that happening. Seattle had a hell of a run last year, and I think they're on pace to be able to repeat that. And they will, I think, need a shortstop in the next 2 years. Emerson could be that guy, depending on how they really want to go with him and JP Crawford. But I love this top three. They've got a little bit of everything. Obviously, left-handed pitcher too.
Yeah, no. And I think this is JP Crawford's last year under contract with us. So I don't know if he's going to stick around.
Might do the handoff.
Yeah. I mean, they really, the front office really likes JP. There was a shortstop bonanza at free agents a couple of years ago, and the Mariners didn't touch any of them. So I'm real interested in that. And I do want to say that I always hear about Lazaro Montes and the concerns for the hit tool, and those are legitimate. But I want to pass on to you guys that I'm a season ticket holder of the Everett Aqua Sox, and I've gotten a chance to see Lazaro Montes play live. And the things that stuck out to me when you just watch him on an everyday basis is he was always the best player on the field. You always felt like he was one of those players, and he played with a number of high-end prospects with the Mariners, Arroyo, Colt Emerson. Like, he's just got that it factor. Like when you see Julio Rodriguez, and I'm not trying to make the comp there as far as talent level or what he's going to bring to the stat line, but when you watched Julio Rodriguez, he always had that it factor. He was always happy and smiling and engaged and watching the game and cheering on his teammates. And there was never a moment that seemed bigger than him, curveballs in the playoffs aside. Like Julio Rodriguez always seems to be that guy. And Lazaro Montas has that. Like I am so, out of everybody that we've mentioned, like I know that Colt and Cade have definitely the brighter shine on their stars, and they deservedly so. Colt Emerson is getting getting a chance to be a starter this year. They're bringing him into camp without any expectations and or restrictions. Cade Anderson, I think Trey Savage is a great comparable. He could absolutely just move through the Mariners system, and you never have enough starting pitching. And if he's good, we might see him in the majors. Lazaro's the one that I'm the most excited about out of all of them, because if Lazaro hits, if he hits, like you're saying, you are looking at somebody who is going to hit 30 to 40 home runs, is going to hit 250 to 270, and will play adequate defense in the outfield. And you will just be, it's contagious. It is contagious. You just, oh my God, it's so much fun to watch him. So just had to pass on my love for Lazaro. You brought him up. So,
hey, we got a question here, guys. Is Schultz still good? Do you guys want to weigh in on that, or should I just drop the Randy Johnson comp and we move on?
Drop it, baby. Drop it like
he's really good, and you should roster him everywhere always. Ben, who are your 25 big three for the Mariners?
So,
or the Seamen, as they like to be called.
They don't.
There we go.
They don't.
Robbie, this is a system that last year we agreed on in the big three, and this year we're also going to agree on. We have the same three again.
Okay.
Emerson, the acquisition of Donovan may be a spot for him, but they're going to allow him to tell Dominic Canzone to go take a break, or Leo Rivas, or pick your guy who right now is set to kind of be the back end filler for the Mariners. They're going to allow Emerson to come into camp and say, hey, I deserve a spot over that guy, which is great, because that's why you get a guy like Donovan, because he can then move to left field. He can move to wherever in order to allow for Emerson to be the third baseman. By the way, don't give up on Cole Young. For those of you, I'm a huge Cole Young believer, and that kid played through a lot of crap at the end of last year, and I think it didn't come out until the end after the year was over, all of the stuff he played through, and it fell off hard after he started. But if you look at what he did his first couple of months, 250, 340, solid gap power, and a really good glove, I think that's what you can expect as a baseline, and I think he gets better from there. Montas, so if we're basing it on his arm, this guy should be like a Gold Glove future guy, because there are very few guys who can unload one from the outfield the way he can. But his instincts when a ball is hit into the air are a little bit like that right fielder we just watched. It's kind of good timing that he'll stick up the glove and hopefully it falls in there. But if he's got it, but still. So he actually, from what I have heard, is they want him to work in the outfield, and he took some time this offseason to really work on his conditioning to do so. Obviously, the instincts are what they are, but if he can at least be faster to the baseball after he makes a bad read, then perhaps he has a chance to stick it in the outfield, which would be huge for his future. Watching him, and I know this isn't a sexy name, but I think it's a really good name. He really reminds me of a right-handed, or of Jay Bruce. And Jay Bruce was a very, very solid power hitter for a number of years, who just kind of fell off after some injuries really piled up on him. But when he was a 250 guy that got on base quite a bit, struck out quite a bit, but got on base and hit a lot of long balls in Cincinnati. And so that could be a really good comparison. And you put a guy like that 4th or 5th in your lineup, in a modern lineup, and you are doing okay. It may not be the guy that you stick 2nd in the lineup. Maybe he's the guy who bats 4th or 5th, and that's a pretty solid guy to have. Anderson, I have in here easy floor as a number 3 lefty starter and a potential to work up to even a 1B type of starter. And the lack of lefty arms in this system could allow him to move quickly. The Mariners have a deep system as far as arms are concerned, but they all seem to be right-handed, except for Cade Anderson. And so Cade could move very quickly simply because they're looking at, hey, this guy's left-handed and could help us. And if you look at their major league roster, there's not a lot of lefties involved in the major league roster either. 0 in the rotation. And you're talking about, Jose Ferrer is going to be fun in that bullpen. I really like him.
Yes, he is.
A guy who can toss 100 without, really thinking about it. Gabe Spire is just another lefty. Not bad, but certainly not someone who, if they really decide that they want Cade Anderson on the postseason roster as a second lefty, pretty sure Gabe Spire isn't keeping him off of that roster. So it's going to be a fun thing to watch this year just to see how quick he could move. Someone made the comment on a podcast I was listening to that, the last time that LSU had the top ranked player in a draft class, that guy moved fairly quick and he's been pretty okay. That'd be Paul Skeens. I don't think we're talking about the same level of pitcher here, but you can make a real good argument that Cade Anderson was the best player in last year's draft and somehow fell to the Mariners. That's a pretty solid thing for them.
Yes, he did. He totally fell all the way down. It was absolutely wonderful. And real quick, you brought up Cole Young, and he reminds me so much that progress is not linear, and he's at an age where he is still figuring things out, and the league is figuring him out. I'm so glad that you said don't forget about him, because there is a real chance that Canzone and Robles get moved out of the outfield, because that's where Brendan Donovan takes over, because Cole Young and Colt Emerson are able to solidify some of those infield spots. They both have some real interesting profiles, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see it play out.
I compared Young, his very, very top end coming into last year, to Dustin Pedroia, a guy who could be at just a ton of doubles, a good average. And I still think that's his very, very top end. So let's not assume that that's what he's going to be this year or next year. But if he could get to be a guy who's hitting 15 homers and 35 doubles and hitting 270, that's a hell of and with the glove that he has, that's a hell of a guy to have up the middle.
He has the ability to play good enough defense to be on the field all the time for that. And, I like the Pedroia comp because Pedroia was really gritty. Like Pedroia just was all about, and I think that Cole Young is that same kind of a player. You comped Jay Bruce to Montas. Yeah. I've got a different name, and I know everybody says Yordan Alvarez, and I don't want to go there. But Marcell Ozuna, is somebody who
I could see him
turning into, where it's just like you're going to get 40 home runs every year, and whether or not he hits 250 or 270, we'll see at the end of the year. I was going to say probably more modern Ozuna, where the defense is questionable, but because Ozuna, people forget when Ozuna first came up, he was a legit Gold Glove center fielder. That guy has gone so far down the defensive spectrum, but he's taken some hits, and so if it's anyway, I'm just gonna stop right there. But
Ben, I was trying to work one in, but you hit it on the head, which I think is what he did.
Yeah.
So,
and oh my gosh, speaking of which, by the way, guys,
yes, let's dive down.
If you really want an enjoyable afternoon,
go down the
rabbit hole
Change the topic
of getting onto Pirates chat boards and finding what the fans have to say about going from Andrew McCutchen in the DH role to Marcell Ozuna, because Lordy, is there some comments?
So they're not on board.
Well,
Let's
Andrew,
just say I think
how
they
do
would
you-
quite be. I mean, McCutcheon's a stud there. I mean, the guy will never have to buy a drink in Pittsburgh for the rest of his life.
He was a great
Should.
player and a phenomenal human being. Like it's
Yes.
really hard to follow in his footsteps.
Yes,
He really did.
You kind of go from just about the best human that's in the game of baseball right now to
Ozuna.
I won't
That's-
say the worst, but he's probably in that class. So you know,
it was hard for me to compare Lazaro to him, but just on the field.
No, I get it. Offensively, I can
Closing
absolutely
your eyes,
see that comparison.
I could see Lazaro Montas, if he sticks around, being an Andrew McCutcheon type. Like he's just, again, I don't mean to drink all the Kool-Aid with that kid, but it's contagious how positive and fun he is.
To stick with that, Sam, Ozuna the last few years, if you know, and I'll gladly get in trouble for another Braves reference, but if you've watched him in the Braves clubhouse, Ozuna has been a huge impact in that clubhouse the last few years. I mean, they have a teddy bear that was dedicated to him that a fan brought in because of the way that he was referred to as, you know, the big bear of the clubhouse. And so they bought a teddy bear that he then sat on the clubhouse bench or on the bench in the dugout. And so, I mean, he connected really well with fans there, but especially connected really well with his teammates and especially the Latin players. And so the on-field stuff could be very similar. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's hope the off-field is not.
No, and I, you know, to final the conversation about Ozuna, like you always want to see people make better choices. Like if we're all taken at our worst moments in life, we're all fucked. Like, you know, everybody has a bad, and you know, that's a bad day. Like you know, a lot of us wouldn't even get into that, but what do you do afterwards? What kind of remorse do you show? What kind of things are you doing to change the narrative? What are you avoiding that you didn't avoid before? And if Marcell Ozuna is doing those things, then like,
well, yeah, that's the unfortunate part is I don't know that he's really owned that, which is that's why I think we can get into a lot of discussion on Andrew Jones because Andrew owned it. Andrew figured it out. Andrew's been an advocate for helping guys who've been in domestic violence, all that sort of stuff. Well, not necessarily. I'm just referring to Andrew because he's a Hall of Famer, and a lot of folks got upset because he was a Hall of Famer because he was once convicted.
As a Brave.
Yeah, well, he was once convicted of domestic abuse. And, you know, I'll just stop going into this any further, but there's a big difference in how they responded after it happened.
Yeah, no, and all of it is just really shitty because nobody should be raising their hands to anybody. Nobody should. It's not how you solve problems. You solve problems.
Let's get into some next three because there's fun guys here to talk about.
Yeah, who is bringing up all these shitty things during our glory time of Mariner conversation?
Hey, to be fair, I didn't touch I never brought up Ozuna, so I'm just
fair enough. No, I'm making
fun. Ben, you say you didn't touch him? Jeez, you sound just like him. All right.
Oh,
next three. Ben, who are your next?
Wow. All right. So last year I had three guys that actually. I guess one does repeat. I was going to say, wow, none of them repeat, but Felden Celestin was one of mine last year. I had Ryan Sloan and I had Rangelo Sihinte, who is no longer with the team. But Ryan Sloan does repeat. I have Michael Arroyo, and one of the things I want to mention here, they have a glut of middle infielders on the team and Arroyo is by far the worst glove of the bunch. And so they are moving him to the outfield. I will say he did really well in low levels where it was an offensive ballpark. He got to Double-A and really, really struggled with better pitching. So the folks that are talking about, well, he was Double-A this year, let's think about what his major league debut time is going to be. Hold up, because I think he's going to need some serious upper minors time. But this is a guy who could be we talked about the guy who can hit the gaps well, who can then pop out 20 at a top end and be more of a 15 to 20 home run guy. that absolutely is Arroyo, and maybe more. But he's got to be able to handle that better pitching. Ryan Sloan, everything you could ask for in a pitching prospect. Beautiful frame, nice delivery that just looks the way you want it to look. One of those rare things, he actually he had an odd season where he would be absolutely dominant one game, and the next game it's like everyone could hit his pitches. And then you find out he ended up having eye surgery at the end of the season. And there's a couple rumors out there that he maybe was mistaking which fastball he was supposed to throw. And so there were times he was throwing a 4 instead of a 2. That could be interesting as far as whether or not he was hittable. Because his 4-seam is kind of a dead zone fastball. Velocity-wise, it's a very solid fastball.
Yeah, he's hitting 98.
It does not move a ton. It does not move a ton. So if he accidentally is throwing a 4-seam in a situation his catcher wanted him to throw a 2-seam, that could be a problem. Now, PitchCom is supposed to take away a lot of this, but understand that we don't have PitchCom at the same level in the minors as we do in the majors. And so that's going to be coming for him. But he did have the eye surgery. That's what ended his season this last year. I will be very interested to see how he comes back this next year. But, man, you can't write up a more perfect low-level pitching prospect than Ryan Sloan. That's kind of the design you want. And last but not least, Johnny Farmelo, who has not been able to be on the field a whole lot. But, man, when he's been on, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Just one of the fastest guys in the minors when he's actually healthy. Can put on a show in batting practice as far as power. Hasn't really been able to pull that into games yet, but has some raw power. I think he could work in center field and maybe even be an okay center fielder. I don't think this is ever a Gold Glover in center field, but if you move into a corner, he could be a really elite defensive corner player. It's just, he's got to be healthy. He's got to be healthy to develop and get his way up the system. It's a lot of fun tools. So that's my 3 next.
No, and Farmelo, I think that one of the skill sets that we don't talk as much about is the ability to stay on the field and to play through nagging injuries or to not be injured at all. And I need to see a full season of Farmelo being healthy and playing baseball. But I agree with you. He is really exciting. And did you see the video of Sloan hitting 96 on his 2-seamer?
No, I haven't, but that's
98 with his 4-seamer. Oh my God.
His 2-seamer is a wicked pitch. I love that as a lead fastball for him.
Yep. The Mariners have a couple pitchers, and it seems like there's more and more that have multiple fastballs, that they're just they're no longer just keying in on a 4-seam or a 2-seam. They want both of them and the different movement profiles they have. So I like those for your next 3. I like those a lot. Robbie.
My turn. Sorry, I was doing some commissioner stuff here. Somebody drafted the wrong Luis Hernandez in one of my dynasty leagues. There's a guy on the Phillies, first baseman, Luis Hernandez, not to be confused with the J2
with the Giants
hype Giants Luis Hernandez. Just fixing that up real quick. And I'm texting Govier to let him know that he's on the clock in another league where we are in our 8th round. Is it now? Almost 9th round. So it's 300 prospects getting picked, and one of the guys that I'm going to mention as a wedge pick is still available in that league, but that's not who I'm talking about. Rad Meow, I'm talking about my 2025 guys. So I had Harry Ford gone, Philin Celestien, and Logan Evans as my next. This year I've got Ryan Sloan, who obviously, 6'5" stud, as you mentioned, $3 million bonus, all these things that we were like, hey, this could be a guy. It's a high schooler. Let's find out. Oh no, he's legit. Like very much Andrew Painter hype train. That's where we're going with him. If Seattle's good, everyone's going to be looking at the system as far as what's bubbling up to the top. Of course, we all know about Kate Anderson. Sloan, we know about, the baseball or fantasy, dynasty guys know about, but all those CBS players who don't understand dynasty baseball, they're going to start, all the people who listen to the top 100 fantasy baseball podcast, they're going to start to find out about Ryan Sloan around midseason. And he is just going to get hyped. Yeah, Anthony, you'll be thanking me in 3 years when he's striking out 250, 170 innings pitched.
Killing birds.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Taking them out. Not just the Boreals either. So anyway, Ryan Sloan, I've got his one. And then I wanted to do something a little different because the Mariners deserve it. And Po Chun Lin is the next guy I have up, a 19-year-old J15 guy from last year. 4 pitches, and it mixed well with the $460,000 bonus he got. I just want to see some actual footage of him now. I want to see the results-based things. That's what I'm looking for with him. And then the other guy I have, which like shocks me to say, I mentioned it earlier about looking for your catcher. Seattle, a team that does not need one, has one, and that's Luke Stevenson.
Yes.
He was the first round type pick. I can't remember exactly where he was in last year's
Out
draft.
of Florida State.
Like he was a top 40 pick. I don't remember if he fell in comp round or however it worked out. But anyway,
competitive balance.
Yeah, lefty who hit the ground running in the pro debut. Does Seattle need a catcher? No, but it's good to have a next guy up. And now they do again because they just had Harry Ford. I think knowing that they feel confident in Luke Stevenson being able to develop, not that that's why you make the deal for Harry or to trade Harry Ford, but that allows you to let him go without thinking now we have a gaping hole. So yeah, I really like this trio. There's, less youth with Stevenson, although it's 21 years old compared to the other two guys as the next three. But I think he's on a similar, 3-year-ish development path. I don't think they're going to try to rush this. Yeah. But again, if he can do the things, he could move faster.
Defensively, he could potentially move fast. It's just that it would likely be he'd move fast as a power only backup. I think he needs some time to develop everything else along with the power. But the guy has legit big power and is a holy shit defender. I mean,
and depending on
it's a fun guy defensively behind the plate.
Yeah, and as far as his movement goes, it depends on what the market is for backup catchers that, like the Jonah Heims of the world that could be better. Mitch Garver, is another one that Seattle's gone through. And then they did, oh my goodness, who's the catcher that they had for several years as a backup? He was in Colorado, ended up
Murphy.
Tom Murphy.
Tom Murphy.
They tried to make the power backup catcher thing work with him, as well as like kind of looped him in Raleigh for a little bit. So not that, they're going to be looking.
Didn't they have Torrens too for a little bit? Luis Torrens, didn't he play for the Mariners?
Had him. Yeah. Absolutely he did.
So they don't need to rush Stevenson up is what I'm getting at. If the market will still allow them to keep kind of getting those veteran catchers. And I mean, obviously if Raleigh keeps doing what he's doing, amazing, but he's also locked in long term. But regardless, the talent is there between Stevenson, Sloan, and Lynn. So
I like your next three a lot. So I have a guy for you guys. You guys bring up your wedge guys, and I don't know if either of you have looked at Spencer Packard. He was
I did not choose him, but yes, I looked at him.
The season at AAA. Every time I saw him, he was filling up a box score. If you didn't look at his name, if you just looked at his box score every night, you'd be like, oh, he did something positive. He did something. And I am really curious to see if he is going to end up being a fourth outfielder for the Mariners, because everywhere he goes, he just seems to be able to hit a little bit and play just good enough.
And this winter, did that this winter in Puerto Rico.
Oh, he played in Puerto Rico this winter?
Yeah.
I love
301.
Exactly. Like he's always just doing enough. And so
for his minor league line is just incredibly, like, nothing sticks out as far as a fantasy guy, but 280 every year with a good walk to strikeout ratio. Like, but this is a 27-year-old outfielder that probably is going to be a fourth guy, but you know what? That's a a guy who, if he's your fourth and he gets on the field, he doesn't hurt you either.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be as strong as like a Yastrzemski, a Mike Yastrzemski, who came up late, or like a Mike Morris, who came up late. I don't think he's going to hit for as much power as those guys, but I could see him sticking around. And, you know, who was that guy? Well, he played for us in the majors for 3-4 years, and he was in 30-40 games and did well. Like, I don't think he's going to be a fantasy contributor, but I think we're going to end up seeing him in the majors. And I like the name Spencer Packard. I think that's a 60 grade name.
So
who
I
are you
guys? A really fun wedge guy. Actually, two really fun wedge guys, but one that I really want to play or talk about is Grant Knipp. Nip. I can't. But he is a catcher and a right-handed pitcher. He is still doing the two-way thing in the Seattle system. So he was drafted in 24 and had just pitched for the first time after 6 years away from pitching. His final year of college, he came back to pitching. Had Tommy John in spring of 2025, so probably mid-season before we see him again. But we're talking a guy with a mid-90s fastball and a really fun curve, so kind of a good reliever profile as a pitcher, but also at the plate, huge arm, and can really beat the hell out of the ball. But he's also, I think, like 6'4" or 6'5", and so the lateral movement needs a lot of work to stick at catcher. But it's just a really intriguing thing to have a guy who's a catcher and a pitcher, both. You see a lot of outfielder pitcher, shortstop pitcher, or things like that, but a catcher pitcher is kind of an interesting combo. Then the other one I wanted to mention for just a wedge guy is Yorger Bautista.
Yeah.
Venezuelan signee that doesn't play catcher. Sorry, Britain. Big raw power plus speed is what I have down here. And impressive defense. Like, all those things are great. Now it's a matter of, there's some I've seen as low as a 30 grade on his contact skills. So it's one of those guys that he does everything else extremely well, but hitting the ball is an issue. And that's one of those that if he can figure out how to even hit like 230 in the majors, he's going to be so electric that fantasy owners are going to want to roster him at that level. And then my draftee to talk about, Indiana had a really interesting outfield last year that ended up having two guys drafted fairly early, and Corbin Dickerson is the guy that I'm bringing up with the Mariners. He was their 5th round pick out of Indiana. Kind of a guy who's like 45-50 across the board for his grades, but he's just really smart and plays above those raw tools. And I don't know that he's ever going to be a guy that's a all-star level contributor in the outfielder, but he's a guy who could, it wouldn't surprise me if he had a 10-year career as a 4th outfielder, that type of a player, that he's just a smart baseball player, probably finds his way. If he finds his way to the majors talent-wise, he could stick around for quite a while just because he's the type of guy that works hard and folks tend to like his profile on their roster.
Yeah, right on. I looked up Yorger's on Fangraphs. Raw power 50 out of 60, speed 60 out of 60, fielding 40 out of 50, game power 20 out of 55, because his hit tool is 20 out of 35. Like,
yeah,
that guy can't hit himself with a bat. So
yeah, it's a really fun profile if he can just figure out how to get even a little bit of hit.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love watching him when he hits. Hey, Robbie.
So Robbie,
you said that you had some wedge guys.
I do.
Did we say their names?
One was said, the other I get to bring fresh to the table. So the one that was said was old Yanni Formello. Now, he's a wedge guy, not a big 3 next 3, simply because he's missed so much time, right? 24 ACL injury, put him into prospect limbo. I really want to know, is he going to get a big push this year, or are they going to let him like slowly work his way back in? Because honestly, he could be the most talented position player. He just isn't healthy to be able to do it. Is he now healthy? And when he is officially healthy enough to come back, what are we honestly going to see from Seattle with him? So the other guy up is the 6th round pick in this past year's draft, Lucas Kelly. I like a few things about him. Don't like that he's right-handed, but beyond that, we got a lot of pluses. He's 6'4", he's 220 plus. He has 3 pitches, although he ditched one this past year that made him into a 4-seam fastball slider combo pitcher from the stretch with the weird delivery. So lots of bats missed. I don't know if they're going to bring him along as a relief pitcher, but I don't see why you wouldn't obviously try to maximize the talent. He did throw a 2-seamer. They could bring it back. They could work on some other fun, exciting pitch for him. Seattle has a history of making good pitchers gooder, and that's a fact. So I believe that there's a chance here for Lucas Kelly to be somebody we like a year from today. After he signed, he did debut. He was somehow put into 5 games, I think it was, for 6 innings, or 6 games for 5 innings, whatever it was, which is, a good sign that they just threw him in somewhere for the sake of, like, they didn't want him to go to complex. So they just put him into games because that's what he'd been playing, and he's a college arm. So I'm interested to see what he does this year. I've got him at the back of a couple of my draft boards. Once I hit the final, 2 rounds or so, do I want to take a flyer on him, or am I looking at, somebody else? I typically don't like to go at the back of my drafts with really young guys unless they've slipped, because most of those, younger-ish guys, I'm talking about 4 years away, they're either worth a higher pick, or you put them on the watch list for next year and hope that they don't, emerge as who was it here that did for as Nate George did, where all of a sudden he goes from being not drafted in the first year to having an excellent year, and then he's a top 50 prospect draft guy, because he was, all the other guys are yet to debut and whatnot for the youngsters. So anyway, Formello and Kelly are the final 2 that I've got. Not that Seattle won't have many various pop-up dudes, but Teddy McGraw is still somebody that I find fascinating, that, like, we all thought when he got drafted this could be neat, because we knew we were going to have to wait. Is he officially now back in the fold and ready to go? Last year he put 28 1/3 innings on the arm. Is this a big year for him? Maybe. I didn't want to put him in there because I didn't know, because he could just be not a lost draft pick, a lost prospect, in the sense that he never gets the innings to do what we would like to see him do. So, but Seattle's system's good. Borington's system, and then San Diego's going to have to find a way, like we discussed. So, and what's up next week? What do we got going on next week?
Next week, we are going to be talking about...
gross.
We're going to be talking about... we're going to have about a 60-minute start to the episode. And then we're going to talk about the Red Sox and the A's after that. But we get to talk about a team who has 2 top 30 picks. So that'll be kind of fun to talk about.
Braves, Red Sox, A's.
Like people have said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, really, it's just the A's for me. I'm excited for some.
Actually,
A's
Red
stuff.
Sox have some guys to talk about, but it's more of a, we're going to talk about who's going to graduate, but we'll talk about this more next week. But it's just, they were a darling system last year, and I think there is a whole lot of bloom off of that rose.
Yes. This is an excellent point for us to finish this one off, because next week I want to talk about how I feel like the Red Sox are getting credit like the Yankees have in the past, and I'll save the rest. Save the rest. Mm-hmm. It's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy if it's true, though. They're listening.
CONspiracy.
You need to come on next week with your tinfoil hat. So
Great idea. Great idea.
I thought cleaners. I thought that's why he wasn't wearing it this week.
Nope, just representing. You know, the truck I bought a week ago, I got running yesterday. Pretty exciting.
Did you drive across the country to get it, or did you buy one?
No, this was just a $600 one. I bought a half an hour away, and then I got AAA, as you would call it, or CAA as we call it, to tow it home. And then when just because the guy was like, I don't know if it'll make the trip, I'm like, that's promising. But it was on the tow truck, and they went to hop in it to start it, and it just went click, click. And if your vehicle ever just goes click, click and doesn't crank, that means your starter's pooched. So the starter was toast. So the guy just like let me put it in neutral and glide it off, and then I was kind of on the road. So my wife had to take my 1979 truck, drive in front of it, and then with a tire on the front of the plow, push the other truck back into my driveway because it was on the road, about 150 meters from my house, which was great. She was super supportive about it and really excited. But anyway, I had to shovel in front of my shop. Yeah, I had to shovel in front of my shop, get it in, and then over the weekend I got it running. So I brought it out to the driveway and did a burnout for her, and she didn't care, but she at least understood it ran. So
shout out to Miss Robbie Baseball for making the great things happen at home. Thank you for supporting Genius. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that is the best Big Three next three we could ever have because the Mariners were in it, and I loved it. The Borrington Boreals didn't even ruin it for us tonight.
Almost, though. It's more the front office that ruins it, right? That's just to be clear. I love the players, hate what happens with them.
The Orioles could be a lot of fun this season. I don't want to say anything bad about them. Don't poke the sleeping giant. It could be their season. So,
is Chad coming in hot with news here? Preller signed Bueller?
Wait.
Yes.
Where the hell do they have space? So now nobody listened to what we said earlier about German Marquez because apparently Marquez is going into the bullpen because they have like 6 starters already. So
Walker Bueller would go into the bullpen before German Marquez.
I would hope so.
Well, JP Sears has options, so that poor guy's getting. Oh, it's a minor league deal. How did he go from the pride of the Dodgers to a minor league deal with the Padres? This is a Thor-worthy fall. Okay, on to next week, guys. We can't do this. Let's not get 2 hours. Govier talks about how these things suck. Wrap it up, Sam.
Hey, on behalf of all the Bears on the screen, I mean all of us bearded ones, I'm Sam. This is Robbie Baseball behind me, and over here I've got Big Ben. God, I can't say your name or B's today. I've got Benjamin Chase, Big Gentle Ben over here. Peace and love.
Right, lads. Now, I know there's not a faint heart among you. And I know you're as anxious as I am to get into close action. But we must bring him right up beside us before we spring this trap. That will test our nerve. And discipline will count just as much as courage. The Acheron is a tough nut to crack. More than twice our guns, more than twice our numbers. And they will sell their lives dearly. They mean to take us as a prize. And we are worth more to them undamaged. Their greed will be their downfall. England is under threat of invasion. And though we be on the far side of the world, this ship is our home. This ship is England. So it's every hand to his rope or gun, quick's the word and sharp's the action. After all, surprise is on our side.